Welcome back to the channel. I realized I have not made a technique video in a little while, so we're going to be doing that today, specifically looking at nose wheelies and adding in a little bit of clutch pop to assist with that rear tire lift. Before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about the background here for some of these videos. Now, as much as I love my boy Sam Fassel and kind of the tribute that I made to mining for him at the Rhode Island National, some things have changed, updated, so we are going to be putting up some big beta stickers as a primary sponsor of the channel and of my riding, Liquid Moly, Jitsi, just some others, Moto Trial Parts and Trial Solutions for sure. Abigail's going to be doing a 10x12 challenge here again, I think kicking maybe next year or sometime soon. I'll tell you more about that. Obviously, Ray Peters getting peg time. So if you guys are interested in promoting your product, maybe you make a Trials part or something and you want to send it to me, I'd love to get information out to the Trials consumers. That way they can make informed decisions. So I'm happy to review that for you. If you want, just hit me up at my email. All right, let's get out there and ride. So one of the things I'm working on right now is rolling into a clutch-assisted nose wheelie. Now this would be after you've already gotten a nose wheelie and after you've figured out how to pivot the rear wheel to the side, and then probably even after you've figured out how to static balance and give a little clutch pop and the rear tire shifting, hopping over to the side. I would say after all of that is what I'm currently working on, which is allowing a little bit of the momentum of the bike. So I'm coming in, but then I'm helping that lift of the rear tire. So I'm gaining an advantage by rolling into it. So I've got momentum, but I've also got a little bit of clutch pop and engine blip. There it is. This is something you see pros do all the time. They don't even think about it. In fact, I was recently at a clinic with Chris Bazzelli, and he didn't even realize he was adding in the clutch and blipping it to help get the rear tire up there when we had him roll in. But it's something that just becomes more automatic as you start to put all these skills together. This takes a ton of time, and it's helpful to learn, in my opinion, all these different things in progression. I'm going to include one tip as it relates to beginners trying to work through the timing of a nose wheelie. The most common thing is that you're pressing the front brake too early in the whole process. So I say your hips are kind of back, and then as you're coming in, you're going to be pushing down hard through the pegs. So jumping off those pegs, almost like you're going into a front handstand. You want your weight to be coming forward, your center of gravity to be coming forward a little bit so that you can pivot around that front tire. Your hips can stay back, but you definitely have to be getting your head a little bit farther forward. Then you're going to be pressing the front brake. I would say most people, when they screw this up, they're usually screwing it up because they're pressing the front brake too soon. They're thinking, I'm slowing down the bike and then I'm going to go forward. Kind of like, just extreme speed into a stoppie. And when you do that on a trials bike, it takes more speed. We don't really want speed. So we want to go ahead and get our weight forward and our weight onto the handlebars. Once your weight is onto the handlebars, you're going to have good traction and front wheel connection, contact patch with the ground, so you can then pivot over that front tire. I'm going to go ahead and emphasize this in two different ways in order to prove my point. I'm going to press the front brake too early, see what happens. Then I'm going to press the front brake a little bit too late and see what happens. So I've pressed the brake and then tried to jump afterwards to get any lift. Maybe just a touch. We're going to press that front brake later in the whole cycle. So I'm going to jump first and then press that front brake. Woo! What a difference that makes when I am pressing that front brake later in the process, getting my weight onto my handlebars. Gosh, that is a ton of rear tire lift, and it's primarily because I'm pressing the front brake a little bit later in the process. So that's a tip for you guys that are still learning to do a nose wheelie. Now I want to talk even more specifically about this rolling in, adding the clutch, which is a little bit higher level stuff for sure. It takes a lot of timing. Now, do I need to work on these as it relates to the line that I'm riding at the Nationals? No, but it's still something I love doing. I love being physical with the bike. I stopped running and I enjoy just jumping and hopping around for 10 minutes at the end of a riding session just to get that physicality, that heart rate up. So one of the things I usually like doing is playing a little game, coming in about 90 degrees to a line or something of that sort and trying to get squared up to it. So that's going to be the static type hops. Maybe one more. Little front. Whoop, went too far. I'm in the grapple. So trying to get light up right about there on that line. But it's a lot easier if I can come in to this. It's my comfort zone to come in and do static, but to come in with a little bit of momentum. But I want to assist. Oop, you can see I don't have this skill dialed yet. So I want to give it a little bit more blip, clutch pop. Totally forgot the RPM there. So just dialing in these two pieces, I have found it helps instead of trying to time the little bit of blip with the unload and then the clutch pop as I'm pressing the front brake. Just so much to work on. I'm gonna extend out that RPM growth a little bit longer. So I'm actually gonna take that component out of the equation as it relates to timing and just keep the RPM higher. That one was probably too big. I'll let the RPM build up just a little bit. Try the other direction. You might have been able to see that the front tire just actually pushed forward. So I'm popping the clutch a little bit too early in the overall process. When I pop the clutch that early, the bike is lurching forward, and I want to be popping the clutch later. So I want to make sure I'm firm with that front brake right about the same time that I'm popping the clutch. There it is. That one should have looked nice and controlled. So this is taking a ton of reps, and I would say just doing circles is probably the best way to learn this. So I'm just doing a circle, gonna rev up the clutch a little, rev up the engine a little bit, and pop the clutch with that rear tire lift. You can see the front tire is actually scooting forward a little bit. It's because I don't quite have the timing down. So I'm gonna be a little bit later in the clutch pop with this overall. I'm just popping the clutch too early. I think what happened was I got so used to doing these from a static position, and the front brake is on. So with the front brake on, it's very unlikely that I'm gonna lurch it forward because I don't have any forward momentum. As soon as I have to take the front brake off while rolling in and then apply it, I'm applying it at the wrong time. There, it's starting to come around a little bit. It might be very subtle to hear the RPM build up ahead of time instead of blipping it last minute. RPM, jump, pop the clutch. I'm shutting off the gas when I'm pressing the front brake. I'm pressing the front brake just slightly after I'm unloading on the rear tire. Whoop, skidding out that front, it's pushing forward. There we go. There it is. Didn't have any push on that one. One of the ways you can tell if you're actually gaining the advantage of that clutch pop is if when you watch yourself, and I would encourage you to video yourself, when you watch yourself, if the rear tire is spinning when you launch, you're getting your foot off the rear brake, popping the clutch, so you're gaining that boom advantage. You can definitely feel it. Makes the rear end a lot lighter in order to come up. But this is something that I'm working on. I just wanted to share that with you. Some of the insights specifically are doing circles, working on small bits at a time, working on the timing of when to pop that clutch. It's actually a touch later in the process such that I'm not lurching the bike forward. And most common when I see people trying to learn to do a nose wheelie, we're pressing the front brake too early. We want to actually be a little bit further into a tipping point, so to speak, such that I'm going from here, I'm kind of jumping forward over the handlebars a little bit. And as I'm doing that, I'm pressing that front brake once the bike is at a point where I've got good push of the front tire into the ground, good traction. Obviously on concrete, it's a little bit different than in grass or mud. But once I've got good weight onto the handlebars, then I'm pressing the front brake. The front brake actually almost comes last in this whole process. And that'd be one tip for those of you that are still newer to doing nose wheelies that I could really send to you is make sure you're pressing that front brake towards the end when trying to get that front wheel, that rear wheel off the ground. There we go, that one felt pretty good. Rear tire probably one to the right. Come on. There we go.